Monday, March 23rd, 2020. For approval of the agenda, I'd like to make an addition to the agenda, or move to add a closed portion to our agenda tonight in regards to labor relations. Charter number 91C. Seconder, Councillor Kalka. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Councillor Lehman.
That the Monday, March 23rd, 2020 regular council meeting agenda be approved as amended.
Seconder, Councillor Mowbray. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. Councillor Mowbray.
That the Monday, March 9th, 2020 Budget Council meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Second, Councillor McGinn. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Any business arising from the minutes, Council? Staff? Thank you. Moving on to consent agenda. Recommendation, please. Councillor Mowbray.
That all items in the March 23rd, 2020 consent agenda be adopted for information.
Seconder, Councillor Jinsky. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Council wish to discuss that item. I believe it's been cancelled now, actually. So, new business 9.1, golf course sale of advertising. A report from the Recreation Services Manager dated March 23rd, 2020, to present to council a policy that will outline procedures for golf course advertising for private business sectors and to seek council approval of the fees and charges proposed in the policy.
I'd like to excuse myself, please.
Absolutely. Councillor Kirby, did you want to excuse yourself from this as well, or no?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Recommendation, please. Councillor Lehman.
That council adopts golf course sale of advertising admin 32 policy as presented, and that council approves the fees and charges for the golf course sale of advertising and directs administration to amend fees and charges bylaw number 623 to include golf course sale of advertising fees.
Seconder. Councillor Mowbray. Open for discussion. Councillor Howe.
I have a question on page 20. It's got to do with the driving range fence. Item 21 talks about all advertising along the nets of the driving range are to meet the following dimensions and material specifications. Later on in the document, it doesn't talk about the nets, it talks about the fence. So is that a typo or a mistake? Because I don't think we want to put anything on the nets with the wind and balls hitting it. You're going to tear that netting up. So just curious as to what was the thought process there.
Okay. Mr. Wall.
I'll pass that over to Mr. McKay.
Yeah, I don't believe we'll be putting anything on the nets per se. So if there is posts or beams that we could utilize, we would. If not, then probably just the stakes would be used in the ground. So just along the netting, not on the netting.
Okay. So I know there's a wood fence down there that separates the parking lot from there, and like I can understand having advertisements on that. I have concerns about the netting there. I remember the costs for them to replace it, and it's a lot, right? So I don't think we want to be putting anything even on the posts or anything with the wind blowing and hooking on the edges of those things, then the balls hitting off of them, and yeah.
Okay.
As long as that's passed along to staff, that I don't know if anyone else has any concerns about that. It's just something I noticed.
Any other discussion, Council? I just wanted to mention excellent report. Thank you very much, Mrs. McKay. It was very good to read. I think this is something that we have missed in the past, and I think this is a good opportunity to not only showcase some local businesses, but also collect a little bit around because of it.
I have one comment, Mayor Bertrand.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Just a question. I don't see the option of purchasing advertising on scorecards.
Good point.
Is that there somewhere?
Let's see it. Mr. Wall.
I know in the past it was a popular way to advertise.
I'm not sure that's something we considered.
We did. The past problem with that is buy bulk boxes of cards, and then if they don't purchase the advertising for the next year, then we've got those cards that we don't
Waste.
potentially wanna use.
Yeah.
So we don't wanna waste them, so
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
kind of why we steered away this year.
Did you hear that, Counselor?
It's kind of.
So, staff was saying that, they buy the cards in bulk and, sometimes the advertisers don't renew every year, so they're trying to prevent wastage of the cards.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. 9.2, Johnny Malcolm Foundation approved exempt events application. A report from the Recreation Services Manager dated March 23rd, 2020. Present a late approved exempt events admin 38 policy application and letter addressed to Mayor and Council. Recommendation, please. Councilor Lehman,
That council receives this report for discussion?
seconder. Councilor Kapelka, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Councilor Lehman, you want to start us off?
Well, I don't see a problem with waiving the fee because they're only doing the green fees, not the carts, and we've discussed that before. The only other thing I'm wondering is what the situation is going to be like in June. Nobody knows if it's going to be able to go ahead. So that's something that they may have to consider. Other than that, I'm fine.
So, Mr. Wall, this is the application to bring it for the approved exempt events application. Is this the application for the event this year as well, or is this just to get on the three
This would,
approved list?
if council approves this, it would be one of the one-time uses, so it wouldn't be a yearly approved event. It would be one of the one-time uses for this year only.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Councilor Norwood?
I had the same question when I came in. I asked staff if this was, we're adding it to our exempt policy, which when and he explained the same thing. Yeah, this is just for the one time only this year. I'm in favor of letting them have the green fees for the event this year. I'm glad that they've been making steps into becoming a foundation versus just a group of people, as well as they're actually starting to put the money into the community, which I'm glad to see that they're doing. So if I'd like to support those organizations that are trying to help out our community, and if this is the mode that they can raise funds, well, yeah.
Any other comments? Councilor Howell?
Are staff aware of any issues with last year's tournament?
Mr. Wall?
I'm not. Do you know if anything went awry last time?
Don't recall anything too specific.
I think, the question of whether or not it's gonna go ahead this year is in question still at this moment, and I think for golfing in general, there's gonna have to be some stringent guidelines put in place, so I would hope that this group is preparing for those types of, restrictions at the golf course as far as social distancing and that sort of thing goes, so.
If the current rules are still in place come this time, they won't be able to proceed. And if more restrictive, I'd say right now with the orders that have come out with the province, we probably could open the golf course, but with the further and further restrictions that are coming out, unless they're lifted by the time the golf season opens up, we probably wouldn't be able to if we wanted. But as of right now, if this tournament was to be held, we would not be able to do it.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilor Norrie,
Motion.
please.
That council waive approved exempt policy admin 38 and approves the request for the John O'Hanley Memorial Golf Tournament for green fees only.
Seconder, Councilor Jinsky. Discussion? Councilor Howell?
Do we have any reason why they were late on it? I know staff had contacted them in the report. They say they contacted them and said, listen, you need to get your application in. And that's the whole point of us going to these types of things, is so that we debate them all at the same time and we see who is looking for the exemption. Because if we had 3 or 4 other groups may not have got this space in favor of this group. But that's kind of the reason we need to start keying in on this stuff, to say if there's a timeline of when this stuff is supposed to be dealt with, there's a reason why we've put the timeline in place. It's not to be stringent or unfair or anything like that. It's actually the opposite of that. It's to look at all of the groups as a group and decide if there is more than the 3 allotted that we have, which one is going to be the odd man out. So I am a little concerned that staff made lots of opportunity for this group to get their information in and did not. And I mean, maybe there's something outside of their control that I'm not aware of, but it needs to be stressed to these groups that we need this stuff in a timely fashion to make the best decisions that we can for the community.
I agree. Any other comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.3, Yellowhead Helicopters Limited Airport Land Lease. A report from the Director of Corporate Services dated March 23rd, 2020 to present to Council the Yellowhead Helicopters Limited Airport Land Lease for renewal. Recommendation. Councilor Norrie.
The council authorizes the mayor and corporate officer to execute the renewal of an airport land lease with Yellowhead Helicopters Limited for a 5-year term beginning April 1st, 2020 and ending March 31st, 2025, and that a price of $1.77 per meter squared annum is established in the lease.
Seconder. Councilor Lehman. Discussion. Councilor Howell.
I'll start on this one. Last time we did this for, I think it was another helicopter company out there. I was not in favor of it that time. I'm not in favor of it this time. I think the amount of money that we're asking for out at the airport is absurdly low for a helicopter company that could make this lease back in 1 hour. They can pay for the entire lease on that airport with 1 hour of flight time. We are going to see, and I've started to see, what the costs are going to be for us to maintain that airport. Those costs have got to come from somewhere. And helicopter companies, we have 2 of them in town, but they don't necessarily have helicopters there. So, you know, we talk about all search and rescue needs them, and it's a community service. And that was the argument that was posed to me last time of why we need to have 1 in Tumbler Ridge. What's good for the goose is good for the gander is the way I look at it, and it's competition. So to me, I'm not comfortable with such a low amount for a helicopter company. I think they could be, we should be getting more money than this. And, you know, I think something more favorable in the range of $1,000 a month would make sense to me. There's a lot of environmental liability that comes with this as well. If we had to go up and clean up after this group left or this group was here and we can't determine who made the mess and we're not doing environmental feasibility studies and then we're left with the cleanup, you know, there's a huge risk to us here for a small amount. The amount of money that they're going to pay us per year isn't even worth processing fees for our district staff to run this documentation through. So again, I will be voting against this because I'm just not happy with the value of the lease that we get out there.
Councilor Norrie.
Thank you, Mayor. So, looking at our charge per meter squared annual, I know is higher than Chetwynd's at 1.4. So, you know, Councilor Howe made some comments and they make an exorbitant amount of money, but their overhead is pretty high as well. I mean, the cost of machines are quite high, as well as the pilot, the fuel. I wouldn't be against trying to negotiate with them, but has anyone talked to them and said, like, how much can you pay? Is that something that we want to do? I mean, they're offering a service for us here. I'm happy with the terms in the lease.
Councilor Majewski.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually didn't come in and see Mr. Wall today, so I had a couple questions on this, and just ask you maybe if you could help me out here. Is Yellowhead under the same ownership as Ridge Roaders? Are they the same company, or are they two separate ones? Or are these separate leases for separate areas of the site or the airport?
I believe so, but I'll turn to Mr. Wall for that. That's correct. Two separate companies.
And
Two separate areas.
are they the same size? Like, so if we charge Yellowhead the same amount as Ridge Roaders, or they're more prime real estate in one area opposed to another, I just don't know the whole logistics on how this works. So if we were to increase Yellowhead, do we have to go back and renegotiate the lease with?
Yeah, I believe we have a lease in place now with Ridge Orders, 3 years, I believe.
That's correct. So you wouldn't need to go back and renegotiate with Ridge Roaders. I would say it would probably be best practice though, when Ridge Roaders lease does expire, that you would bring them into line with whatever pricing you have established moving forward.
Yeah.
And sorry, and that's one of the reasons why we have the cost per at meter squared rather than just putting a flat amount, is that allows for the different sizes in the leases to get a relative amount of equal payment depending on the size of property they lease.
Go ahead.
And one more question. Was it Yellowhead that suggested a 5-year lease, or was that the district putting that in place?
Mr. Wall.
That was just us moving to that.
For me, I'm in favor of this lease. I think we're in line with the neighboring community as well, as far as the charge goes. And honestly, I don't see our doors getting knocked down to try and fill that space out there. So I think any revenue coming from that area is beneficial. So I am in favor of this lease. Any other comments? Councilor Ginsky?
Do you know the total meter squared area that they would like to lease?
233.
233.
It's just over 400 bucks.
That's it.
Small. Any other comments?
They have use to all the facilities out there, like our bathroom facilities and our,
Do they have use?
Yeah.
of them? They would, I believe. with
Okay.
the lease. Any other comments? Okay, call the question on the recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Kirby, are you
I'm in favor.
in favor? Carried, thank you. 9.4 Occupational Health and Safety Policy Program Review, a report from the Director of Corporate Services dated March 23rd, 2020, to provide information to Council on the District's OH&S program and to seek Council's affirmation of the OH&S policy statement, as well as approval of the updated manual. Recommendation, please. Councilor Moberly.
The council receives the occupational health and safety policy report for information, and that council affirmed the occupational health and safety policy statement TR4.
Seconder. Councilor Ginsky. Comments or discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.5 Council Expense Policy E05. A report from the Deputy Director of Corporate Services dated March 23rd, 2020, to present Council Expense Policy E05 changes for Council's consideration as requested at the February 18th, 2020 meeting. Recommendation, please. Councilor Majewski.
The council approved the amended council expense policy EO-5.
Seconder. Councilor Capel. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.6 Tumbler Ridge Community Center Restaurant 2020 lease. Report from the Recreation and Services Manager dated March 23rd, 2020 to seek approval of the Tumbler Ridge Community Center Restaurant 2020. Recommendation, please. Councilor Lehman.
That council directs administration to enter into a lease agreement with Joe's Pizza Stone as per the expression of interest, closing March 11th, 2020, for the Tumbler Ridge Community Center Restaurant, and that council approves the Tumbler Ridge Community Center Restaurant 2020 lease as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Norbury, discussion. Councillor Howell.
I'm trying to find it here. I can't find where it was there, but there was something in there about when the current occupant leaves the building. Is the current occupant still in the space?
Mr. Wall.
There's still material, and they still have some material in there. We're working with them to have it,
Okay. And I'm under the understanding that there may be some lease payments missing from the previous owner, previous leaser. So I want to know what we're going to do going forward so that we don't get into that situation again. Is there anything in place differently that staff has in this lease to stop us from, stop people from being able to do this to the district of Tumbler Ridge?
Mr. Wall.
No, there's not. I've thought about what we could do there, but the issue becomes, if you put that strict rule in, for example, no misrent payments, or if you misrent payments, you're out. It doesn't give you the flexibility to manage the situation. You know, when we have those situations, and we've had a few of them, we have some where they fall behind, and they're able to get back, and we end up having to remove them from the premises. But we've had a number of occasions where they do fall behind, and through working with us, they're able to pay back and get back onto strict or to solid footing. So by putting any sort of hard rule in there, it takes away the ability to do that. So you'd be trading. I mean, you would get something out of it. You'd get a maximum amount of money that you can lose from your rent if you were to put that type of rule in. But you'd also be losing the flexibility to try and work with the providers to maintain that service, because there is quite an interruption of service levels to the community when you have to remove people.
Councillor Howell.
I can certainly appreciate and understand where Mr. Wall is coming from, but for me, representing the taxpayers of Tumbler Ridge, this has consistently happened in Tumbler Ridge time and time again. We've had a golf course operator that owed us a pile of money. We've had this restaurant. There are other people that at least two that I can think of at the golf course. And I think one, maybe two at the rec center that I know of people that were behind on their lease. And to me, we need to do a better job for our taxpayers in our leases so that we don't run into this situation. In business, you would not accept it. Why would we accept it as a municipal council?
Yeah.
I don't want to vote for this. I do not want to hold this up. I'm looking forward to Joe's Pizza coming here. I think that's going to be a great addition to our community. But I am not comfortable moving forward on this until we could look at some other option in our leases that either prevents this from happening or lessens the amount of tax dollars that we have to take from our coffers to cover this type of stuff. It's not fair to our taxpayers for this to happen. And I don't know if there is something that Mr. Wall could suggest that we could look at, that we could try. I understand his concerns on flexibility, but it seems to me we get taken advantage of because of that. And so because of that, I don't want to move forward on this until we can find a better solution for the district of Tumbler Ridge.
I understand your concern there. The lease agreements are pretty industry standard, industry best practices as well. 3 months is a very standard time frame. It would be very difficult, I think, to fill those spaces with more stringent rules on the leases. It may attract and it may deter. It's hard to say. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is one of the pitfalls of being a landlord. In other types of situations, residential situations, there is a lot of tenant. The word is eluding me, but tenants have a lot of rights, and I think the 3-month period is just where we're at. I mean, I've heard stories of residential tenants going without paying rent for longer than 3 months, 6 months, or longer. So us being able to terminate, say after 3 months, you're out of there. If it's industry standard, I think that's important. And as far as payment plan as it being a liability to the district, I know that we are continuing to seek funds from these individuals. And, so it's not lost money. We're still going to try and do what we can to recoup the money for the residents. I'm in favor of
Councillor Howell.
So perhaps in this particular case, we are going to get our money back. Perhaps. I'm not saying that we are, but perhaps we can. But I can tell you for sure in the past, we have not. We had to go to court and put a lien out or whatever it was against Graham Johnson, who absolutely ripped us off at the golf course. And we were trying to chase him down. And as far as I understand, we're still trying to collect the money from Mr. Johnson and have been unsuccessful to this point. So to me, this isn't my game. This isn't what I'm into, restaurant leases and this and that. But I just think there's something we can do. There has to be a better way of doing this. For somebody to owe the district of Tumbler Ridge money and we're giving them the opportunity to go back into the building and take out all their possessions while we get left holding the bag again is wrong. I don't understand why would we allow them back into the building when I don't even know. I think it's more than 3 months that they owe. I think it's larger than that. I'm not going to speculate. To me, if they owe us money, we should be making sure we can control some assets and getting that money back. Lock them out of the building. I don't get it. To me, there's got to be a better way to do this than the status quo that we've been going with, that people take advantage of us time and time and time again.
Yeah, I hear your concern. Any other comments? Okay, call the question on the recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Schedule a meeting. Anyone look all right there? Any concerns? Councilor Dinsky?
As we go forward, things are going to obviously change day by day. Is it imperative that we have as many council meetings as we do currently right now? Are we getting behind on anything? Are these meetings going to be excessively long? I'm just wondering because I know Dawson Creek is actually shortening the amount of scaling back quite a bit. Yeah, so just thought if that was on our radar at all, if it's even worth considering at this time, or maybe wait a month or two.
Mr. BYLAWS, can you forecast what the upcoming month?
Yeah, I'd say that council, you generally go through waves in a cycle over your 4-year term and within a 1-year term of when things are busy and when they're not. So I'd say the first 2 years of your council time is much busier than the last 2, and then when you get into budget and planning season, it's busier than not. So I would say as we move into April till probably September, things are going to be much lighter, and then they pick up again in October. From staff side, I would say that we probably don't need that many council meetings. We could do without as many as we have scheduled, although we are getting into the summer schedule in the near future anyway. So having said that, staff probably doesn't need too many, although there are a few issues coming up, nothing major. It'll really depend on what council wants to do for your strategic planning moving forward. How is council going to address what I spoke about in the tax setting meeting about the likelihood of a financial gap next year once we have more assets in place, and where you want to move to that, and then what are your other strategic desires for the community. So from a staff's perspective of what we need to do to keep the current business of the district moving, there's not a lot of meetings that we would require. It really comes down to how much discussion you guys want to have moving forward into the future.
Yeah, and I remember we were talking about a strategic planning meeting after budget here in April. I'm kind of leaning towards a facilitated strategic planning session. What are council's thoughts on that? Councilor Norbury?
Yeah, I'd like to see maybe a facilitated one. No offense to your worship, I know the last time it was done without, and I thought that we could have been able to do a little more. So let's see a facilitated one and see where we can go from there. Because I know that the last year we have been saying we want to work on our strategic plan. We want to work on our strategic plan. Maybe this is a good time that we can have someone who has some experience with strategic plans to guide us along and sort of formulate our thoughts.
Absolutely. I went through the process with the regional district and it was very well done. So I definitely saw the value of having a facilitator. But as far as timeline goes, I think April fits. What are council's thoughts? In the policies and priorities committee meeting, there wasn't a lot on the agenda last time. I guess if you have a topic that you want to bring forward for the PMP, please let me know. We'll work towards a strategic planning meeting. Is the weekend work for everyone, or would you rather the week, during the week?
I think we should hold off and just see what's gonna happen here. Regardless, depends who you're gonna use, flights and stuff like that, I'm not interested in, depends on what's going on, if I'm interested in seeing somebody that's been flying. I'll be honest with that right now,
True.
especially right now.
Yeah,
I mean, I actually think we should be watching who we're bringing into our community as well, into our council chambers.
Yeah, good point. I mean, everything's up in the air, obviously, right now. Some trying times right now, so, yeah, no, that's a good point, we can revisit that. But I do think this year we definitely need to have a strategic planning session. Okay, notice of motions, Councillor Hall?
Yeah, I want to put forward, and I'll send everyone this document when I get an opportunity after the meeting here today. It's just, in light of the recent events around COVID-19 and the monumental decrease in local business traffic, due in part to businesses being required to follow a mandatory government-forced shutdowns, the ever-deteriorating economy affecting people's savings, retirement, layoffs, job prospects, slowdown, and no foreseeable end in sight, and that the DTR will see lower costs to operate with the closure of all public facilities and no need for casual part-time employees and therefore less need for tax money, and that we have considerable $25 million plus in savings and an estimated $3.8 million in surplus this year, and our savings are mandated to be invested in 100% secure investments, which we made over $650,000 in interest in 2019. And the motion will be that council approves a 50% decrease in residential taxes for the 2020 district budget, and that council approves a 100% decrease in the business class taxes for the 2020 budget. This will represent roughly $500,000 in savings for our businesses and $600,000 in savings for our residents. This would effectively reduce every residential taxpayer's bill in half and completely eliminate all business taxes in the DTR for a period of 1 year. We are constantly hearing the phrases unprecedented times calls for unprecedented measures, and we are in uncharted territory. We have an opportunity as a council to come together and truly do something that will benefit all residents and businesses in Tumbler Ridge. This will take courage, this will take vision, this will take a monumental leap ahead of all others, but most importantly for tonight, this will take leadership. I encourage my fellow council members to take time to really think about and debate this amongst us and the public, and take your leadership roles seriously with conviction and do something the likes of which has never been done in our community, province, or country. Vote with me to help our residents weather this incredible storm of COVID-19. Okay.
Any other notice of motions? That was a good one, by the way. Good job.
Thanks.
Okay, councillor's business. Councillor's business. Okay, question and answer period. Nobody's here. Resolution to close meeting. Councillor Kukalka.
I don't have your numbers, so unless you wanna make it, I'll second it.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to go to closed under 91C labor relations. Seconder, Councillor Kukalka. All in favor? Opposed?